Hi, my name is Zandile Tshabalala. I'm a fine artist born and raised in Soweto, currently residing and working in Johannesburg. My work is mostly acrylic on canvas, and my subject matter deals with the representation of Black women, specifically looking at my own personal experiences as a Black woman and how I am navigating the world and navigating history. Currently, I have my first solo exhibition in Johannesburg. It is happening at the BKHZ Gallery in Rosebank, and it is titled Love is in a Secret Place. I guess the whole exhibition for me is a very personal one because it required a bit of deep reflection on my experiences with love and the nuances of looking for love in your early 20s, meeting people and experiencing, I guess, heartbreak. And I wanted to make work around that. I think of this exhibition as how, let's say, a musician thinks of an album. There's a sequence and it's a narration, and I wanted to sort of have that, I guess, way of working with the paintings. When you get into the gallery, you're made by this large canvas, and I'd like to think of it as the beginning and the end. And it's just this one figure, it's the self, right? Because before we experience love, before we experience people, we're starting with the self. The main thing was to, I guess, express my love story as sincerely as possible and just be vulnerable with it, of which I don't very often do in the work previously, or at least not in this particular way. So when I was thinking around the exhibition, I've had it in my mind for a long time, but I had not been able to execute it due to space and just timing. I think when approached by the gallery to show here, it made sense that this exhibition that has been in mind for so long happens in this particular space. The space is intimate, and I think the works in itself and the narrative is one of intimacy. So the setting for me was a garden. So just going back to the title, Love is in a Secret Place, is actually something that my lover said to me. And it is we could be lovers in a secret place, and they were referring to this garden. And I think that was this common thing that we had between us, which is this love for the outdoor and this love for intimacy and privacy. And I was thinking about, how does my audience experience this moment with me? How do I share it in a way that gives perspective to the audience, where I'm coming from, but at the same time reserves or saves some of that privacy and intimacy for myself, because I can only share it to a certain extent. Even if I speak about it or paint it, only I and that person have experienced it. Which is interesting, right? Because how do you share emotion? How do you share intimacy and experience? You can only do it in a very limited way, and that sincerity is required. So I imagined the exhibition happening in a garden, and I imagined the whole space being transformed into the secret place, which is this garden, right? So for the actual composition of the work, I think when the audience sees the work, it's two figures. It's the woman figure, which I've painted consistently. She has been consistent in my canvases, and I regard or think of her as a self-portrait, maybe self-portrait in terms of narrative or just reflection, but not necessarily a likeness, because I'm not really focused on how the figure looks in terms, do they look like me or not? I don't really think that's the focus. When I was thinking about how do I now present a new figure without taking away from this consistent figure, it made more sense for me to leave the other figure blank, so that it's also noted that the consistent, which is the lady, it is her perspective, her side of the coin, and her experiences. I think when it comes to vulnerability and love in relation to Black bodies, fortunately we do get to see a bit of like that documented, but I think there is never enough of that documented, you know. And I think coming from a country that experiences so much violence in relation to like intimate relationships or just gender-based violence, I think for me it's also important to experience the other side of the coin. My work is always focused on what is empowering, you know, for the Black body. And I think even in me choosing to speak about love, I wanted to speak about it in a very empowering manner, in a very sincere and honest manner, and in a way that captures or highlights the parts that I really did enjoy, because I think these are beautiful moments that I really would like to share. So for the audience, I think firstly, I'd like them to come to the show and experience it in person, because it's one thing to see it in images and it's another thing to experience the garden and the work in the garden in person, and you get to smell it and feel the plants and see the work. As Miss Nina Simone says, love is the only thing that is worthwhile, right? So we chase it, we work for it, we crave it, and I guess the work that you see in the show is sort of an embodiment of that. It's an embodiment of finding it, losing it, craving it, sort of desiring it and experiencing it. I'd like the audience to experience this love with me and also just embrace their own experiences and not be shy to think of it as like a radical thing to talk about, especially in relation to Black bodies. We can be vulnerable and we can be soft, and I think it's important for us to embrace that softness and embrace that vulnerability.